Welcome, everyone. As we learn Torah's Hashem, Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach, as always, we begin with Karas HaTov to TorahAnytime.com for its reach all over the world in Habatzas Torah, and for Kol HaLashon, for its global network, Torah Communications Network, our Zoomers, those of you that are here in our flagship station at the Agudas Yisrael Beis Zev of Fairways Lakewood, the YouTubers, Facebookers, and all the other places that carry this shir. Today's shir is dedicated by Danny and Aviva Dworkin, Le'ilui Nishmas Natalie Friedman, that's Nechama Bas Avram. Her neshama should have an aliyah. She should be a Militzis Yosher, Militzis Yeshara, for her family, for all of us, and all of Klal Yisrael, and the Refuah Shalema for David Yohanes and Ben Yoel, should have a Refuah Shalema B'Seich Shecher Yisrael. It's also being sponsored by my dear Talmud Beirich Goldwasser, Lilu Nishmas Ababi, Malka Bas Yisrael, Neshama should have a Lichtige Gan Eden. Before I start the shir, I want to say that I am a little bit under the weather, and it would have been an easy way out for me to skip a week. I take it very seriously that in the over 42 years that I'm giving this year, Hashem has allowed me to give it consecutively, except for some times where I took off it on a Chalamoid or in the summer, but otherwise we always had a shir. And I'm grateful to Hashem, and therefore I take it as a big responsibility to try not to go without a shir. So then my wife said to me, Moshe Meir, you got a lot of notebooks in this farm shank. Pull out a notebook and say an old shir. I always try to offer my Talmidim some new insights. However, I'm giving you this long-winded prologue because I think the shir will be more of an abbreviated one tonight. And let us proceed and see what Hashem gives to us. We know that Lavan, every parasha has its personalities. Last week it was light, and we saw righteousness in light. This week it's the infamous Lavan. We know that his name, while it seems to cry out white, Lavan means white. Lavan, white is Yim Ye'ir Chata'echem Kashani. If your sins are red, Kasheleg Yalbinu, it will be whitened like the driven snow. White is purity. But although his name was Lavan, it's the same letters as Novel. One who is disgusting. One who is vulgar. And indeed, Lavan was a repulsive person. Right? We know, it says in Nagada, Bikesh Lavan Lakar es hakol. Lavan wanted to uproot everything. But sometimes you see a person, the reason why it was called Lavan is he was a good phony. So it says, Vayaretz Lavan Elaish. Lavan ran to Eliezer. Well, it looks like he's such a big Machnes Eirich. Mamash Tzaddik. From the family of Avraham Avinu. Says the Meshech Chachma. Listen to this Meshech Chachma. Meshech Chachma says that Lavan ran to Eliezer because he knew that Avram had a daughter at home. It says Hashem Beirach Avram Bakol. Hashem blessed Avram with everything. And Bakol is that he even had a daughter. The Gemara says in Bava Basra, Bakol Shema, her name was Bakol. So Lavan thought that Eliezer was coming to bring him back to Avram to marry his daughter. Lavan thought it was a shidduch between Avram's daughter, Bakol, and Lavan. So Lavan was very excited. He's going to be married into the famed, wealthy family of Avram. It said better the manure of Avram than all the wealth of Avimelech. When he found out, it's not for me. It's for my daughter Rivka, for Yitzchak. Then Vayavay Eloish. Then he walked over to the man. He wasn't in a rush anymore. So you get to see, the true insides of this unpleasant man. The Torah testifies, remember Avram is the father of our nation. Avram is our hero, is the prototype of the good Jew. So it says, Avram Zakein Ba Bayamin. Avram was old, and he came with days. So of course the obvious question is, well, we know he's coming on in days and years if it says that he was old. What does it mean, Ba Bayamin? So we all know that all of the Mefarshim tell us is that Avram used every day. He was Baba Yamim. He came with all of his days. And by the way, that means that he didn't let down his guard even through very tough times. I'll give you an example of that. It says, Vayavay Avram lispod l'Sara v'livkaisa. Avram came to eulogize Sara and to cry for her. Ask the Medrash, it says, Vayavay Avram, where did he come from? So there's different opinions. But one opinion is that Rebbe Levi Amar Mikfur Osai Shel Aviv. His father just died. And he came from the funeral of his father Terach to the funeral of his wife Sara. But the Mincha Blula says, we know that in the word Velif Kosa, and to cry for her, there's a small chaf. It's called the Chaf Ze'ira. The Mincha Blula says, because if you take out the Chaf, then the word is read, not Velif Kaisa, but if you take out the Chaf, that's why it's written in a different size, so that you could read the word just with the big letters. So instead of reading it Velif Kaisa, if you take out the Chaf, it's read Ulabita. And that is that the daughter died then too. There was really nobody for her to marry. She was born miraculously. You have to know that if he had a daughter, that daughter was a miracle. Couldn't have been born before Yitzchak, because then Sarah wouldn't have laughed when she was told that she's going to have a child if she already had a daughter. So that means that it was born after Yitzchak. That means Bakol was a tremendous miracle that she was born at least when Sara Imenu was 91. And I always felt that she was born to be a companion to Sara Imenu in her last years. Because remember, Yitzchak, he didn't go. He wasn't around. Avram sent Yitzchak to learn in the yeshiva of Shem Ve'ever. That's why, by the way, everybody asks a question. It says, "Vayavay Avram lispaid l'Sara v'livkaisa." Avram came. Where was Yitzchak? Yitzchak wasn't by his mother's wife. By his 90-year-old mother that prayed for him her whole life. And she had him at 90. He didn't come to the funeral. So the Medrash has two approaches. One approach is that at the Akedah, from the shock of the Akedah, Yitzchak suffered. And he was brought to Gan Eden to be healed. That's one shot. That's why he wasn't there. He was in Gan Eden. But the more popular pshat is that Yitzchak wasn't around. They didn't have speedy transportation in those days. And Yitzchak was learning in the yeshiva of Shem Ve'ever. Now I'll tell you a little bit of a vignette. This vignette is going back about 48 years ago. 48 years ago, when I was a bacher in Yeshiva of Staten Island, my father, Reb Herschel Weiss, Zecher Tzadik L'Vracha, Schusi Yogan Aleinu, was honored together with my mother, Tebadal L'Chaim, was honored as Parents of the Year. And they made the dinner in the menorah on 14th Avenue. I still remember that the Noya Makovid, the guest speaker, was the great Rav Turnauer from Shemer Shabbos. They asked me to speak. I was I was a young bacher in the yeshiva, and it was this week's parsha. And I said, it says, "Vayavay Avram lispaid l'Sara v'livkaisa." Where was Yitzchak? So the Medrash says Yitzchak was in Shem Ve'ever. Yitzchak was in Shem Ve'ever. Why wasn't he home with his mommy? Avram Avinu learned Kol HaTorah Kula. Avram could have learned with him. Let 100-year-old Sara have a bacher home for nachas. So the Tiferes Tzion, which is a huge compendium on the Medrash, asks this kasha. And the Tiferes Tzion says that the reason why Avram sent Yitzchak to Shem Ve'ever is because Maisa Avos Siman Labanim. The way of our Avos is a sign for their children. Meaning that what the Avos did put into the DNA of Jewish bloodstream the ability to do things. Avram Avinu going into the furnace of fire put into the Jewish bloodstream the power to risk our lives, the power to be a Jewish martyr. Avram Avinu wanted to inject in the Jewish bloodstream the power for parents to send their children away from home to learn Torah. That's not an easy thing to do. Parents raise a child, and finally when they become mature, They want to have nachas from their bubala. They want to have their bubala at home at a Shabbos table. They want to be proud for them to take them to shul with them. But a young bacher will never thrive the same unless he goes away to learn. He's home with his little brothers and sisters. He's not going to be immersed day and night in learning. I remember when I went to the yeshiva Staten Island at 13, my home had a television. Of course, it was a different television in the 60s and the 70s, but it was still a television. It was still a distraction. I went away to yeshiva, I learned the whole day and night. So that's why Avram sent him to Shem V'Ever. I said this about my father and mother, that they were able to sacrifice, to send their children away from home and give up their nachas. But that's why Avram Avinu sent them away. But let's get back to what we said, V'Avram Zokein Ba Bayamim, that he used every day. There wasn't a wasted day. Even here, he had a triple header of tzaras. Vayavay Avram, he came from burying his father. He went to bury his wife, and v'livkaisa ulabita, he also buried his daughter. A triple header. But that didn't waylay Avram. Think about our life. How many wasted days? How many wasted Sundays? I remember Rav Miller saying he was walking on Ocean Parkway. That's where Rav Miller took his spatzir. He was walking on Ocean Parkway, and he saw an old man with a beard walking with a heavy Sunday New York Times. And Rav Miller said, it wasn't Lashon Hara, we didn't know who it was. He said, what a waste to carry that heavy compendium of nonsense and pour over it, when a person could have been Mavaseder during that time, learning Navi, learning Mishnah Brura, learning Mesilas Yesharim. Avram didn't waste his time. He was Ba Bayam. All of us have to ask ourselves, when we come to the next world, how many of our days are we bringing with us? It says in the pasuk, Limnos Yameinu Kain Hoida. If you know how to count your days and make them worthwhile, the Navi Levav Chachma, that brings to a heart of wisdom. Or what the famous Ibn Ezra said, Adam doig al ibad damav. A man worries and frets about the loss of money. Ve'enoi doig al ibad yamav. He doesn't worry about the loss of days. When it comes to the end of days, damav einam oizrim. Money doesn't help. Yamav einam chayzrim. Days don't come back. But Rabbi Leibel Katz, the great Rabbi Leibel Katz, in his Oyel Aryeh says a remarkable notrikin. Va'avram zokein ba. Avram, who is elderly and he's coming, is Seif Tevis Amen. Avram ends with a mem, Zokein ends with a nun, and Ba ends with an aleph. That's aleph, nun, mem, that's Amen. Because Amen is one of the things that graces a person with longevity. That's a Gemara. The Gemara tells us, Kol hamarich ba'amein marichin lo yamav v'shneisav. Whoever prolongs their amein lengthens their days and their years, which fits in very good with this pasuk. Avram Zokein Baba Yamin. He was elderly, but it was also Baba Yamin. He had quality days. One of the great opportunities of our life is answering Amen. To get to shul in time to hear brachas and to answer Amen, to not space out, and to answer Amen with Shemona Esrei, Chazar Sashatz. What does it mean, Kol hamarich ba'amein? You see, an Amen is an art. A lot of people don't know the art. But Amen is an art. How many Kaddishes do we hear every day? But if you're marich ba'amein, if you make your Amen meaningful, then when you hear the end of Kaddish, Oiseh Shalom b'mraimav, Hashem makes peace in the heavens. Because an angel is made out of fire and water. They would extinguish each other. But he makes peace in heavens. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu. He should make peace for us. Even if we're not getting along with a spouse, with a child, and we're opposing forces. Just like you make peace with the opposing forces of fire and water in heaven, should make a peace. V'imru amen, and say amen. Person says amen with thought. Now, marach ba'amen doesn't only mean to listen to what you're saying amen to. Rabbeinu Bachya says that when I hear the bracha of Mikadesh HaShabbos, and I answer amen, yeah, Hashem laced Shabbos with Kedusha. He gave me time that I don't have to be busy. I could concentrate on all the good things that I could do on Shabbos. That's a good amen. But that's not marach ba'amen. Rabbeinu Bachya says when you answer an amen, you should be answering it to Baruch Atah Hashem as well. When you hear Baruch Atah Hashem Shalei Asani Gai, anybody that reads all of the goings on and the ugly behavior of politicians, Shalei Asani Gai. But that's not enough. You're also saying amen to the first part, that Baruch Atah Hashem. Hashem should be blessed, and He's the source of blessing. Oh, that's being marich ba'amen. Those that learned the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch Yomi learned recently that it's true also when you make a bracha. Kitzur Shulchan Aruch says when you say Baruch Atah Hashem, you already should know what the end of the bracha is. There are a lot of people that don't do that. Baruch Atah Hashem, oh, Shalei Asani Gai. Baruch Atah Hashem, oh, Mal B'Sharuma. The Miller says when you say Mal B'Sharuma and you have a mind for buttons and zippers, where would we be without buttons and zippers? But when you say that, Baruch Atah Hashem, you should know already that you're answering Mal B'Sharuma. When you say in Shemona Esrei, Baruch Atah Hashem, you should know that you're saying it on Shemei Tefillah. Now, any talk on Amen, you'll forgive me, those that heard this from me many times, but it's worth repeating. Amen is such an investment. Somebody said, did you get in early in investing in AI? There's so much room for growth. Do you know what the power of an amen is? I always tell this story. Shmuel passed away at the ripe old age of 91. Gematria Amen. He goes up to Shemayim. They judge him. And Hashem shows him a nice wooden gate. And he tells him, Shmuel, go in through this gate. You'll have a very nice home there. That's your home. L'neitzach netzachim. Shmuel looks up in the stratosphere of the afterlife, and he sees silver gates, golden gates. Then he sees diamond gates and titanium gates with music and smells wafting out from them. And he looks at Hashem, can I ever get into those gates? And Hashem looks at him sadly and he says, Shmuel, I'm sorry. You didn't do enough with your life. You didn't learn Shas. You weren't such a good husband. You weren't an attentive father. You didn't do a lot of tzedakah. But don't worry, Shmuel, you did a lot of mitzvahs. It's a nice community. So Shmuel goes into the community, found a lot of his friends there. Everything was okay until 2.5 years later, his best bud, Shmerel, comes up. Shmuel is so excited. Oh, Shmerel, yeah, he was just like me. We're going to be neighbors. We're going to have some grand times. And to his shock and consternation, he sees they started fitting Shmerel with a jetpack. And Shmerel is flying up through the golden gates and even into the titanium gates. Shmuel runs to the Rabbeinu Shalom. Rabbeinu Shalom, I don't understand. I thought this is a fair place. Shmerel? Shmerel? He was just like me. He was no tchotchke. Rabbeinu Shalom looks sadly at Shmuel. Shmuel, didn't they tell you Kala Aina Amen Paislam Oishai Gan Eden? You answer Amen with Kavanah. They opened for you the gates of Gan Eden. It's the master key for all the gates. While you were talking during Chazat Hashatz, while you were in a half soporific state, Shmuel was answering good Amens. With those good Amens, he has a passport to all the Shari Gan Eden. It's the master key. We need to pay attention to Amen. It's one of the most powerful words in the Hebrew language. It says, Vayavay Avram lispaid l'Sara v'livkaisa. So we already said that there's a small chaf. There's a lot of discussion why there's a small chaf. So as if to minimize the crying. That he didn't cry so profusely. Simple reason is because she led a perfect life. And one who leads a perfect life goes to a better world. The next world is the main world. You notice it says lifkosa, to cry for her. To cry for himself, that he's going to have to live all the way to 175 without her, that would be something to cry about. But here it's talking about crying for her. Crying for her is a small chaf. Because she's gone, she lived the perfect life. Right? It says a famous palindrome. Vayu Chayai Sara, Rashi says, Kulan Shavan L'Tayva, all our years were equal. Vayiyu is read backwards and forwards the same way. Vav Yud, Hey, Yud Vav. It's read backwards and forwards. That's called a palindrome. Because her life from beginning to end was perfect. So therefore for her there wasn't much to cry. For him, yeah, but for her. But there's one famous pshat. Do you know why he didn't cry a lot? He didn't want anybody making an inference and a deduction that he was anyway regretting the Akedas Yitzchak. It says, why is the parasha of Sara, Chayai Sara, put next to the Akedah? Because she died with the news of the Akedah. The son came and said, did you hear that your husband is taking your son to be slaughtered? Parcha nishmasa. So somebody would say, oh, Avram is crying, he's regretting doing the Akedah. If not, if he wouldn't have gone, he would still have Sarah. So in order that nobody should make that inference, he didn't cry a lot. By the way, this is a method of the Satan. In Mariv, in Ashkivenu, we say, Va'aser Satan milfanenu me'achareinu. Remove the Satan from before us and after us. So the Satan before us, we understand. He's in front of us telling us, don't do it. Don't do the Akedah. But what's the Satan afterwards? The answer is that the Satan afterwards tries to get us to regret what we did. Because if we're regretful, then we will lose the schar. By the way, there's another two pshatim in what does it mean, me'achareinu. One pshat is, remove the Satan in front of me that's telling me, stop, don't do the mitzvah. And the Satan in back of me that's pushing me to do the Aveira, to speak the Lashon Hara. But there's another pshat. Once we do the mitzvah, then the Satan tries to get us with pride, with hubris, with arrogance. All those people that talk in shul, all those schmoozers. All those people that hoard their money for themselves. Look at me, look at me. The Son tries to get people afterwards to mess up with pride. This Satan, by the way, that tries to get people to regret things, this is a common malady. It's a common malady. We find that the Satan, here's a person who learned in Kailul for 5 years. Amazing feat. And then now afterwards he has a hard time finding a job. And people say, don't you regret if you didn't learn in Kailul? You could have learned trade before you had a lot of children. And then he starts regretting all that learning. Never regret doing mitzvahs. Never regret doing mitzvahs. It's a ploy of the Satan. There's a medrash in Esther Rabbah, Perek Zayin. Interesting medrash. The medrash says that when Haman was looking at the months, so there came up the month of Mar Cheshvan, our month. And Haman said, no, that's not a good day. It's not a good month because that's when Sara Imenu passed away. It's a mysterious medrash. Because Haman was happy when it came Adar because in Zion Adar, Moshe Rabbeinu died. So he was happy to have a month when Moshe Rabbeinu died. Why wasn't he happy to have a month when Sara Imenu died? It would seem to me that the answer is, Sara Imenu it says that she lived her full years. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky proves that from the fact that Yitzchak, although he lived to 180, he gave his deathbed blessings to Yaakov in his 120s. Because you're supposed to be concerned you might die 5 years before the death of a parent. And since Sara died at 127, so he gave in his 120s the deathbed blessings. He was afraid he might die. But Rabbi Yaakov says you only have to worry if the person died at their time, not that they died early. So Rabbi Yaakov says Sara Imenu was supposed to die at 127. But the Medrash compares her to David HaMelech. Medrash says that David HaMelech was told that he was going to die on a Shabbos. So he learned every moment of Shabbos, so the Satan couldn't get him. The Satan had to distract him and rustle trees in order that David should pause a second from learning that the Satan could get him. The Medrash says the same thing about Sara. Sara was so involved in chesed and maisim toivim and kiruv rechaikim with the women every minute, the Satan couldn't take her. He had to scare her with the news of the Akedah in order to distract her. Sarah's life, her death was a demonstration of how perfect her life was. Haman didn't want to have anything to do with that. Vayan Lovenu Besuel Vayomer Me Hashem Yotza Adavar. Besuel and Lavan said, what can we say? The shidduch is obviously from Hashem. Question is, that's the way Rishon talk? Besuel, it says, tried to kill Eliezer. Besuel was a sexual pervert of the worst kind. And here he's saying, "Me Hashem Yotza Adavar." And the Mefarshim tell us it's because of the hashpah of Eliezer. Eliezer was always saying Hashem. Vayomer Baruch Hashem, Anochi Baderech Necheni Hashem, on the way Hashem led me. And since he was always saying Hashem, it rubbed off on Lavan and Besuel. A good parent, a good Zayda, a good Elta Zayda, Hashem Shemayim Shgura B'fiv. Baruch Hashem, Im Yitza Hashem, Adank Di'ebishta. That's the Kol Yaakov. That's the way Yaakov spoke. When Yitzchak asked him, how did you get here so fast? Catch 2 goats. Ki hikra Hashem lefana. Hashem chose that they should come before me. Yitzchak said, ooh, Kol Yaakov. That really sounds like my Yaakov. To have Hashem's name. And when we do that, then Hashem helps us. B'kol drachecha do'eyu, in all your ways acknowledge Hashem, v'hu yiyasher orcheisecha. Then He will make your path straight. That's the famous acronym, Atzas Hashem Hisokim. The Atzas Hashem, the plans of Hashem Hisokim, that's what's going to be upheld. He, Hey Yud Aleph, is Im Yirtza Hashem. Person gets into the habit of saying Im Yirtza Hashem. If you could be mashpia, even a love and besuel, could definitely be mashpia on a wife, on a husband, on children. That's the Kol Yaakov. Vayetze Yitzchak lasuach basada. Yitzchak went out to converse in the field. Gemara says, "Ein sicha el tefillah," and it's here that Yitzchak made the tefillah of mincha. Mincha means a gift. The tefillah of mincha for us is a very great gift. People, if they would realize how powerful the tefillah of Mincha is, the Gemara in Brachas tells us, and Daf Chavava Mebeis, Amar Rav Chelbei, Amar Rav Huna, La'olam yehei adam zar b'tfilas mincha. Person should always be careful with tfilas mincha. She'Eliyahu lo'inena ela b'tfilas mincha. Eliyahu was answered specifically with the tefillah of mincha. Mincha is the same letters of nechama. A good mincha brings a consolation. It's an interesting Klei Yakar. The Klei Yakar says that night is kitrug, night is din. Mariv is in the night, and Shachris is right next to the night. But Mincha, so you could start saying Mincha these days at 20 to 1. Mincha Gedalah is far away from the night. It has a great power. Of course, everybody says that Mincha is powerful because you could daven Shachris before you get busy with your day. You could daven Mariv after you're finished your day. But to stop in the middle of the day, take a break from the office, in the middle of everything, that's a very powerful gift to Hashem. I want to thank the Danny and Aviva Dworkin for dedicating the Shir Le'ilui Nishmas, Natalie Friedman, Nechama Bas Avram, the Goldwasser family, Berich Goldwasser, Le'ilui Nishmas Malka Bas Yisrael. If you would like to sponsor a share, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. Again, I apologize for a little bit of an abbreviated share tonight. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night and a good Shabbos.